It's that time again! Can you hear the blessings of Mara? Can you smell the home-cooked meal? Can you feel the lover's comfort perk down in your bone? That's right, it's time once again to get married. And if you're looking to get married quickly, don't worry, because life in Skyrim is hard and short, so courting becomes super easy, barely an inconvenience. Help out someone in need, wear a beautiful amulet of Mara around your neck, get married, and boom! You got a spouse that cooks you food and gives you an allowance. But who you decide to marry is an important choice, as you can only do it once, since divorce hasn't been invented yet. Legal divorce, at least. But have no worries, because House Telvanni has come to help you in choosing one of the 66 potential spouses in the game to be your forever partner. Hello, my fellow hirelings of House Telvanni. I'm Neloth, and today I am going to be your agent of Mara that'll aid you in searching for love by ranking every single potential husband in Skyrim. Last time I ranked every single wife in Skyrim, so this is part 2, where we will be focusing on the bachelors. Before I begin, I do want to state that this is solely my opinion, and everyone has different interests when it comes to their partners. For example, Henry Cavill makes me blush more than a Debellan priestess, but some losers might disagree, and that's okay. Be sure to let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree, and depending on how many points you've invested into luck, I may just even read it. So with all that being said, let the Skyrim rendition of The Bachelorette begin. Begging his way into last place is Angrenor Once-Honored, a homeless war veteran that once fought for the Stormcloaks and now lives on the streets of Windhelm, begging for coin. Now, Angrenor is a terrible husband not just because he is homeless and has no assets to provide us, but also because he is not a nice man, being quite prejudiced towards the Dark Elves. When we enter Windhelm for the first time, both Angrenor and Rolf are harassing Suvaris Athernon, and Angrenor even accuses her of being an Imperial spy based on no evidence that he knows of. And that's not even the worst of it, as he will beg for coin no matter what. Even if you marry him and move him into the mansion in solitude, his begging never ceases, nor will he ever change out of his dirty rags he wears. Now, some people might respect that and say the grind never stops, and to be fair, fucking based, but it sure does get very annoying very quickly. Lastly, his name Angrenor literally means Angry Nord. His name shows that he is a representation of a disgruntled Nord who is upset at the world after he was injured in battle and will make sure everyone around him feels the same way. What a miserable marriage that would be. Gambling his way into 35th place is Octieve San, an elderly Breton living in solitude who spends all of his time drinking and gambling. Once upon a time, Octieve used to be something, as he was the one that created the spiced wine that his daughter Yvette sells in solitude, and it is quite the popular beverage. He also claims that he was quite the warrior back in the day, though whether he's exaggerating or being truthful remains to be seen. However, nowadays he is just a selfish, lazy bum. For example, when his daughter asks him to clean up the house while she's away providing for the family, Octieve says he will only do it if he feels like it. He will also be quite rude to his daughter if she doesn't bring back any mead from work. Now, there is a miscellaneous quest where we can help out Octieve with his gambling debts that he owes to a Nord named Ernskar. But honestly, I think that's a problem he should deal with himself instead of weaseling his way out of it by getting a big bad adventurer to deal with the issue for him. Octieve would be a terrible husband due to his laziness and selfishness, and above all, his age. Dude's gonna die in like 6 months anyways, so what's the fucking point? The only reason he is above Angrenor is because he at least has a house and originally created spiced wine. Drinking his way into 34th place is Cosnach. Cosnach is a porter that supposedly works at the Arnleif and Sons Trading Company. However, most of the store's shipments get robbed by Forsworn, so he simply drinks all day at the Silver Blood Inn. However, Cosnach is quite lazy because even when a shipment does come in, Cosnach will say that his cousin Imodane will bring it in for him. Which angers the store owner, Lisbeth, understandably, because what's the goddamn point in having a porter that doesn't do anything? The only reason Cosnach is employed in the first place is solely because his cousin covers for him all the time. Similar to Octieve, he is just a lazy drunk, and yeah, his voice type does give him some funny lines if you marry him, but there is another potential husband with the same voice lines who is simply so much better than Cosnach in every way. Magically slicing his way into 33rd place is Belrand. Belrand is a Nord spell sword and mercenary that sits at the Winking Skeever Inn in Solitude awaiting a new employer. Now, personality-wise, there is really nothing wrong with Belrand. He has some interesting lines about how he uses both blades and magic, but physically, well, he's one of the ugliest potential husbands in the game. Maybe even the ugliest Nord in all of Skyrim. Like, I'm sorry, but dude, please just shave off your hair. It does you no favors. You're still holding on. Let go. Or at the very least, grow a beard using your magic you boast about. Brawling his way into 32nd place is Benor. Benor is a Nord living in Morthal who does a bunch of odd jobs to make a living. He wants to be a guard, but for some reason he hasn't been made one yet for some reason, even though he claims to be the best warrior in town. And that's probably because not only is he not a great warrior, but he is a bit of a coward, as during the quest, Laid to Rest, where you charge a vampire lair with a bunch of Morthal's citizens, Benor will be one of the people too scared to go in, some warrior he is. Even if he is your follower, sometimes he will just wait outside. He also has horrible taste in women, as he is interested in Alva, who is secretly a vampire trying to take over the town. But he will only be with her if she stops dating Hrogar, even though the whole town believes that Hrogar killed his entire family just to be with Alva, and Alva is just okay with it! And this is before the whole town figured out that she was a vampire. Oh, and fun fact, there is dialogue to suggest that Benor and the Housecarl Gorm are planning to overthrow the Jarl when the time is right, which makes him a bit more interesting, but still a dull and cowardly husband, which wouldn't be too bad if he wasn't also lying about being such a great warrior. Running away into 31st place is Halbarn Iron-Hand. Halbarn is a Nord blacksmith living on Solstheim. When we meet him, he and a group of others have been kicked out of their home, Thirsk Mead Hall, by a group of Reeklings. But we are able to help him and the others out if we so choose. Now, Halbarn is one of the nicer members of Thirsk who actually contributes something, unlike the rest, but the reason he is so low is because he has one of the worst miscellaneous quests in the game. You think gathering Crimson Nirnroot or the Stones of Baron Zaya is difficult? Try finding 10 Stalrim ore and 15 ebony ingots! All for a medium amount of leveled gold ranging from 400 to 1,200 septums. You know, rare resources that would be infinitely more valuable to keep and use. Honestly, fuck Halbarn for this quest alone. Besides, if I want to marry someone from a mead hall, I'd just go to one of the companions instead. Mining his way into 30th place is Perth, a Breton miner working in Solion's sinkhole that you probably have never heard of before. Perth is sort of a dick to you and his co-worker Tuthel, because if you clear out his mine of Draugr, he will constantly be telling Tuthel to stop being a coward because Tuthel believes that the Draugr will come back. And ironically enough, if you don't have the unofficial patch installed, the Draugr will return and Perth and Tuthel will likely die. And that's about it. He's a bit of a jerk and eats his own words, nothing more to really be said about him. Casting his way into 29th place is Marcurio. Marcurio is a sassy Imperial Destruction mage that is also a mercenary for hire. This might be controversial as I know quite a few women that like him, but I don't really like Marcurio that much. I think he is far too arrogant, but not in a fun way, and he's the least interesting of the magical followers that we can recruit. And if I have to hear this guy complain about lugging my stuff around and whine that he's not a pack mule one more time, I'm gonna shout him off the throat of the world. Not a horrible guy, mind you, but there's just better fish in the sea, and he will never be as sassy as the sexy Master Neloth. We will now be roping the next 4 bachelors together as they are all pretty much the same, as they are the male Housecarls we can acquire from the cities Windhelm, Markarth, Dawnstar, and Morthal. And they are Calder, Argus the Bulwark, Gregor, and Valdemar. With the exception of Calder, all of the male Housecarls are some nice looking guys, but because they are devoid of any real personality besides being sworn to carry your burdens, they will never be highly ranked. Also, as stated in my wives ranked video, I would advise against marrying your Housecarls because who will look after your house if you decide to move? I always liked the idea of a Housecarl patrolling your house as it explains why you can store the most valuable shit in all of Tamriel inside your house without some would-be bandit coming in and stealing it. I also just like having houses with people in it as it brings life and personality to your house, making it feel more lived in. For the sake of continuity though, Calder is in 28th place for having ugly mutton chops, Argus is in 27th place for being a discount blonde Farkas, Gregor is in 26th place for having a cool name, and Valdemar in 25th place because he is the most unique Housecarl as he knows magic as well as martial skills. Slicing his way into 24th place is Athis. Athis is a Dunmer and a member of the Companions training under Farkas. He is one of the weakest members of the Companions, as we will see him get his shit kicked in twice, once by Nyada Stonearm when we first enter Jorvaskr Hall, and the second when the Silver Hand raid the hall for the pieces of Wuthrad. He can sometimes come off as arrogant, claiming that he will one day become the Harbinger, even though he should focus on one day becoming better and not getting absolutely wrecked in a fight. But sometimes he can be humble as he respects the wisdom of the Circle, the leaders of the Companions, and takes the word of his mentor Farkas to heart, even if their fighting styles are polar opposite. Athis was originally an Ashlander from Morrowind, but he crawled west out of the Wasteland, indicating that he fled Morrowind due to its inhospitable conditions. And now it seems he has fully taken on the Nordic lifestyle, with Skjor even saying that he has the heart of a Nord. He's okay, but I think he's only good if you're an Ashlander character or a Dunmer adopting the Nordic way of life. Axing his way into 23rd place is Torvar. Torvar is a Nord that is also a member of the Companions, similar to Athis. However, unlike Athis, he seems to be able to hold his own even if he is a drunken misfit that forgets a lot of things all the time. Even though he is a drunk, he does seem to have ambition, as he often talks about one day being a part of the Circle, the leaders of the Companions. The only issue with Torvar is that he is a man with a lot of debts, likely due to his drinking and possibly gambling, meaning if you do marry him, you might have to get real familiar with moneylenders. The good thing about Torvar, though, is that he has funny lines when you marry him due to the fact that he has a drunk voice type, making him a more successful and better-looking version of Cosnach. Good husband if you are playing an alcoholic. Scheming into 22nd place is Romlyn Dreth. Romlyn Dreth is a Dunmer that works at the Blackbriar Meadery and is a descendant of Vaylin Dreth, the first person we meet in the game of Oblivion. Romlyn is a schemer, always working on plans and plots to elevate himself, even when his plans are idiotic. For example, he has a plan to burn down the rival meadery in Whiterun, Hunningbrew Meadery, in order to get in Maven's good graces. But Indarin calls him an idiot, as the act of arson would easily implicate Maven Blackbriar herself. He's also a liar and constantly exaggerates stories about Romlyn Dreth and how he killed 6 Imperial guards and single-handedly fought off the Mythic Dawn after they slew the Emperor. The only good thing about Romlyn is that he steals mead from the Blackbriar Meadery and sells it to travelers and other inns for a far cheaper price. And anyone who spits in Maven Blackbriar's direction is good in my book, but even then, I don't think Romlyn is good husband and father material. Smelting his way into 21st place is Omluag. Omluag is a Reachman native that lives in Markarth, smelting silver ore into ingots for the Silver Blood family. He is sadly an extremely overworked employee, forced to work in extremely harsh conditions, and his foreman Mullish does not make things easy for him, even beating him sometimes. Luckily, when speaking to Omluag, he can ask us to talk to Mullish into treating his workers a little bit better. Omluag is not a bad guy by any means, but he really doesn't have much to offer us in a marriage. Besides, there are just way cooler husbands. Swimming into 20th place is Dirkethis. Dirkethis is an Argonian miner working in Darkwater Crossing. When we enter Darkwater Crossing, some people will mention that he has gone missing, and we have the option to rescue him from Darkwater Pass, from a group of Falmer that are keeping him prisoner. When we rescue him, he will thank us and return to his duties as a miner, but can also become a potential follower, meaning Dirkethis is the only Argonian follower in the game. While unique in this regard, Dirkethis doesn't have any unique dialogue beyond some follower lines, so he really doesn't have any personality. All we know is that he respects the Hist like all Argonians do, and often takes Hrefna, the daughter of Tormir, out fishing. Dirkethis is okay, but I feel there is a way cooler Argonian husband that I will reveal later in this video, and a friend of Dirkethis that is even cooler. Sitting in 19th place is Vorstag. Vorstag is a mercenary residing in Markarth. There isn't too much to say about him, but I like the way he looks, and I like his name, and I think it's interesting how he can tell that Margaret is not a simple traveler, but a warrior, all based on her stance and the way she walks. Which is true, as she is an Imperial spy. This shows that Vorstag is a really experienced soldier, and maybe he could be your experienced lover. Crushing his way into 18th place is Stenvar. Stenvar is another mercenary, but this time chilling out in Wilhelm. Now, I like Stenvar, and I think he is my favorite of all the mercenaries in-game, mostly due to his light jokes and heart of gold. I simply can't help but smile when I ask him to trade or ask him to leave. Additionally, he is a bit old, but he's old enough to be quite experienced and knowledgeable since he survived for so long as a warrior. Perhaps his heart of gold and experience is the right match for a thief or mercenary character? We will now be roping 2 bachelors together, and they are Pavo Atius and Gat Gro-Shargak. These 2 miners originally worked at a gold mine called Kolskager Mine, but were driven out by the Forsworn and forced to relocate to an iron mine called Left Hand Mine. Pavo and Gat are all that survived the attack, as everyone else had been murdered. If we talk to Pavo, we can offer our assistance to retake the mine and kill all of the Forsworn in it, allowing them to return back to work. What's interesting about Pavo and Gat is that they appear to be longtime friends as they talk about their time in the Legion and the battles they had survived. Personally, I find Gat to be more interesting than Pavo, as Gat is a stronghold orc that belonged to a clan before joining the Legion. However, the reason he stays at Kolskager Mine instead of returning home is because he would have to kill his brother, as very rarely do orc chieftains allow their brothers to stay within, as they are considered a threat. Gat does not wish to kill his brother, which I find intriguing as it makes him unsuspectingly 3-dimensional. However, since Pavo is the owner of Kolskager Mine, which is a literal fucking gold mine, he might actually be one of the richest husbands in the game, So for any gold diggers out there in the metaphorical and literal sense, keep that in mind. Even then, I still place Pavo in 17th place and Gat in 16th. Misting into 15th place is Filnjar. Filnjar lives in Shorestone and is both a blacksmith and a miner who cracks rock inside of Red Belly Mine, a unique mine known for its red mist that might attract frostbite spiders. Filnjar is sort of the leader of the whole place, keeping everyone in check, and he's also a pretty decent guy, being rather nice to the player and having a sense of humor at times. The only thing wrong with him is that he's a little bit old and, most importantly, balding, but the kind of balding where you wish you would just accept that he doesn't have the hair he used to. We don't know if he actually owns Shorestone and therefore Red Belly Mine, but it would make sense given he basically runs everything. Reaching into 14th place is Ainethach. Ainethach is a reachman that owns the mining town of Karthwasten and its two mines, Sanarok Mine and Fens Gulch Mine. When we first encounter Ainethach, he is being threatened by mercenaries in the employ of the Silverblood family to hand over his land to them as payment for helping them in fending off a forsworn attack. Though, knowing the Silverbloods, they probably orchestrated the forsworn attack in the first place. We can offer our assistance and either force Ainethach to sell his land or drive off the mercenaries. Naturally, you will want to drive out the mercenaries even if you don't wish to marry Ainethach because fuck the Silverbloods! What's interesting about Ainethach is that he is one of the wealthiest reachmen due to his mines, which sadly makes him a target by everyone, but shows that he is very capable with his money and great at making business decisions. He also has two kids of his own named Rondak and Vawada who have grown up and work as assistants to a famous chef named Anton Varane. This shows that he would be great as a husband as he has financial experience, which is great since all spouses open a store, and also a good father since he already has two kids making their way in the world. The only problem is that Ainethach looks like he is both a 14-year-old boy and a 30-year-old man at the same time, which is just really disturbing. Bartering into 13th place is Revyn Sadri. Revyn is a Dunmer living in Windhelm that owns a store called Sadri's Used Wares. He is a very honest businessman and does his best to avoid purchasing stolen goods. However, if you speak to him, he will confess that he accidentally bought a ring that originally belonged to Viola Giordano. You can help him sneak the ring back into Viola's house or snitch and get Revyn in trouble, but real ones will help Revyn because he is as chill as an ice Atronach in Winterhold. Darth Revyn has a way with words and can even train you in speech if you aid him, but he can be slightly naive. He also has a sister named Edessa Sadri, so if you marry Revyn, expect to see her at the wedding. Not much else to say. I think if you're going to go for a House Halalu merchant type character, Revyn would probably be the best. Winking into 12th place is Sorex Vinius. Sorex is an Imperial that works for his father, Corpulus, at the Winking Skeever and will one day inherit the family business, even though his sister Minette knows far more than he does. Sorex is a decent man in my opinion, but he does hold great hatred for Rogvir, the gate guard who was executed, as he used to bully and beat him all the time for years. Rogvir even once put a beehive in Sorex's bed. Some might say that Sorex is being harsh when he says that the execution couldn't have happened to a nicer guy, but I do get where he's coming from. In a world as violent as Nirn, you too might be cheering for the execution of a guy who's bullied you his entire life. And you've probably killed people for less anyways. The great thing about Sorex is that not only is he a good-looking dude, but he will eventually inherit one of the wealthiest taverns in all of Skyrim. So if you like performing at taverns, serving drinks, or drinking drinks, you may want to look up Sorex. Wilhelm screaming into 11th place is, well, Wilhelm. Wilhelm is a Nord who runs the Villamir Inn in Iverstead. Now, at face value, you might think that Wilhelm is just some ordinary barkeep, but he is far more than meets the eye. When we first meet him, he will ask us to investigate a supposedly haunted barrow next to the inn called Shroud Hearth Barrow, where a ghost seems to guard it, even scaring the literal shit out of Wilhelm one time. However, after a thorough investigation, we will find out that there is no ghost, as it was a Dunmer hedge wizard named Wendelius Gathrian, who made a potion to look like a ghost so that he can keep people away while he looks for the Sapphire Dragon Claw, a key to get him deeper into the barrow and find treasure. Wendelius could never find the key and went insane trying to find it, though ironically Wilhelm had the claw all along, though we don't know how he got it in the first place. A funny quest, with the moral being that it is always useful to ask for help and greed can corrupt and blah blah blah. But that's not all about Wilhelm, as he seems to be very antagonistic towards the Blackbriar family for two reasons. The first is that he purchases stolen mead from bachelor number 22, Romlyn Dreth, likely because Maven's mead is so damn expensive. And the second is that he is hiding a woman named Linley Starstrung, who Sibby Blackbriar once dead, because Sibby was in a relationship with Linley, whose name is actually Svidi. There's a whole story behind that, but basically Svidi was running and Wilhelm agreed to keep her hidden. This shows that Wilhelm is actually a really good person, as he is risking his life to shield a helpless woman from a corrupt crime family. Wilhelm does have his flaws though, as he fiercely hates magic and lied to a beggar named Narfi about her sister Rada being alive, even though he was fairly certain she died, which ended up being true. But I think his acts of kindness and acts of fucking over the Blackbriars even the playing field. There are some theories that say Wilhelm was involved in Rada's death, but because of his actions with Svidi, I just don't think it's true. And even if it is, you have totally done worse. Howling into 10th place is Vilkas. Vilkas is one of the leaders of the Companions and also secretly a werewolf. Vilkas was raised in the Companions from a young age alongside his brother Farkas when a man named Jurgen, who may or may not have been his father, left them to fight in the Great War. However, unlike his brother, Vilkas cared very little for Jurgen. Some members care about glory and honor, however Vilkas is much more into gold and making money from his various jobs. Even then, he does agree with Codlac Whitemane, the harbinger of the Companions, to not use his werewolf powers and to seek a cure, so that one day he may enter Sovngarde on the day of his death. After finishing the Companions' quest and becoming the Harbinger, we can even cure Vilkas of his lycanthropy so that he is no longer a werewolf. Vilkas is great, but he can be quite rude to you, and I personally just think that his brother is a far better husband, but we will talk about him later. But if you're really into money, have little morals, or like bad boys, then Vilkas might be your next boyfriend. Mixing into 9th place is Quintus Navale. Quintus is an assistant alchemist working for Norelian, a master alchemist running a store called the White Phial in Windhelm. Quintus originally lived in Cyrodiil, but traveled all the way to the snow end of Skyrim to work with Norelian because apparently he is just that good. He admits that Norelian is not the best teacher, as he can be short-tempered, but he has learned a tremendous amount about alchemy from him. And the only reason Norelian has a short temper is sadly because he is dying, and is doing his best to locate a relic he named his shop after, the White Phial, before he dies. When we enter the shop, Norelian will insist on going to find the White Phial, but Quintus will insist that he stay put, as he is far too weak to make such a journey. We can aid Norelian in finding the phial, and after finding it and then fixing it, Norelian will pass to the next realm at peace, leaving Quintus to take care of the shop. Quintus is a really kind and caring individual who knows a great deal about not just potions but magical items as well, showing that he is as much of a mage as he is an alchemist. I like Quintus and think he is very underrated. If you are role-playing an alchemist, I think Quintus would be your perfect husband. Shocking his way into 8th place is Onmund. Onmund is an apprentice enrolled at the College of Winterhold and one of the few Nords currently present. Many Nords in Skyrim dislike magic and therefore the college, and the same can be said for Onmund's family. As he said, it took him years to convince them that being a mage was what he was truly meant to do. Like all of the adepts, Onmund is quite impatient and eager to prove himself. However, once the College of Winterhold questline is complete, he will be far more understanding of Tolfdir's lessons and how dangerous magic is and how he should always be cautious. Unlike the rest of the college, however, Onmund absolutely hates it when all the adepts take a school field trip to Sarthal, the first Nordic city, as he feels the dead inside should be left alone. Which makes sense given he is a Nord. While Onmund has a difficult relationship with his family, it does seem clear that he loves them in his own way, as he pawned off a family amulet to Enther but regretted the deal and wanted it back. And we will absolutely be giving him his amulet back. Overall, I think Onmund is a stand-up guy that will one day become a good mage. While he may have a difficult relationship with his family, I'm sure it will only make him a more loving husband and father if you marry him. Though I hate the fact that he wears a hood by default. Smithing his way into 7th place is Moth gro-Bagol. Moth is an orc and also the personal blacksmith of the Jarl of Markarth, be it Igmund or Thongvor. Like many orcs, Moth was born in an orcish stronghold and learned to smith when he was just a child, but left for unknown reasons with his sister Gorza to join the Imperial Legion. He served in the Legion for 10 years and fought side by side with not just his sister, but also the asshole Thongvor. Moth is one of the most apolitical people you will ever meet. He believes that the Empire has been good to his orc kin, but feels that the civil war in Skyrim is none of his concern. Overall, I always liked Moth and thought he was a gem and a nice guy, even giving you armor in exchange for a Daedra heart, though there is a better orc. Traveling into 6th place is Ghorbash the Iron-Hand. Ghorbash is an orc that lives in an orcish stronghold called Dushnik Jarl, though interestingly enough, he lives alongside his brother Chief Burguk, who leads the stronghold. Remember Gat, and how he never returned to his stronghold because he did not wish to kill his brother? Well, unlike Gat's brother, Chief Burguk welcomed Ghorbash as family rather than rivals, as is tradition, and allowed him to stay and work to make the stronghold great. Ghorbash is content with this and does not wish to challenge his brother, as the Legion taught him to respect leadership. And so he respects Burguk and believes he is more worthy to be the chief. Oh, yeah, and Ghorbash, like almost every orc in Skyrim, served in the Legion so that he could see the world and still has the itch to wander, which is why he may tag along with you. But Ghorbash is a really nice and respectful guy and one of my favorite orcs in the game, so maybe instead of tagging along with him, you should just fucking marry him instead. If you're role-playing a female orc, you could even create your own pseudo-orc stronghold with him. Scouting into 5th place is Scouts-Many-Marshes. Scouts is an Argonian that works on the Wilhelm docks unloading cargo for the Nords, be them the Shattershield clan, East Empire Company, or independent sailors. Scouts came to Windhelm as a hatchling, and so this cold city is all he has ever really known. Though considering he can offer training in light armor, he may have been a thief or a scout for the Imperial Legion, which could have been where he originally got his Tamrielic name. He has become the unofficial leader of his people and tries to do his best to make sure they are all well and that they are paid as good as they can be. Though he has issues with the Shattershield family, as they consider Argonians to be lesser than Nords and pay them as such. Which is why he will ask the player if they can convince Torbjorn to pay them better, and will be very pleased for himself and his people if they finally get better wages. I really like Scouts and think he is a far more interesting character than Dirkethis. He is caring and a natural leader, which would probably make him a really good father. Besides, if you are an enjoyer of the lusty Argonian maid, or the male version, the sultry Argonian bard, then Scouts would be perfect. Digging into 4th place is Sondas Drenim. Sondas Drenim is a Dunmer that lives in Darkwater Crossing and works as a miner. On top of his mining duties, Sondas also takes care of a child named Hrefna in his spare time when his mother Tormir is busy working in the mines as well. Just like many Dark Elves that live in Skyrim, Sondas was never born in Morrowind and has lived in Skyrim his entire life. Which is a long time, as Sondas says he has been digging up ore for over a century. Sondas is a good Mer and tries his best to be a good influence for both Hrefna and the rest of his friends. He is also very concerned about the safety of his friends, as he notices people complaining about bad coughs and foul air, and since he's been mining for a long time, he knows he needs to prevent this issue by sending a letter to our dear Quintus Navale for potions to fend off against said foul air. Sondas is a great Dunmer that cares for others and tries to be a good role model to Hrefna, so if you are playing a Dunmer refugee or a Nord with ties to Morrowind, I think Sondas would be absolutely perfect as a husband and father. Fortifying his way into third place is Farkas. Farkas, like his brother Vilkas, is not only a member of the Companions, but a member of the Circle, too. Farkas is not the brightest flame spell ever cast, but what he lacks in intelligence he makes up for in strength, not just in body, but also in spirit as well. When both Farkas and Vilkas agreed with Cosnach and refused to give in to their werewolf transformations, Vilkas struggled heavily, but Farkas was completely unfazed, showing that his spirit is incredibly strong. Additionally, he is also one of the nicest leaders of the Circle, excluding Cosnach, showing that he is very polite and compassionate as well. Farkas may be rough around the edges and not the smartest, but I honestly adore his simplistic view on life. He is very direct, and I do appreciate that. I mean, when Farkas asks for assistance in curing his lycanthropy, he doesn't have some long, complex reason. He simply states he wants to be a good Nord and go to Sovngarde on his death. Besides, being a good husband and father doesn't mean you have to be the smartest, you just need to be protective and caring, and Farkas is both of those things if nothing else. I just like Farkas more than Vilkas, and as a master wizard of House Telvanni, I'm the smart one. I don't need some would-be smart warrior acting like he knows more than me. Salting into second place is Balimund Ironbore. Balimund is a Nord living in Riften and works as the local blacksmith. Now, I really like Balimund not just because he is a kind man and passionate about his work, but also because he has an adopted son named Asbjorn Firetamer. Asbjorn grew up in Honor Hall Orphanage because Grelod said his parents didn't want him anymore. However, Balimund saw something in him. He saw the makings of a great smith and took it upon himself to adopt and train him. Balimund is also a really good blacksmith. Maybe not the best in Skyrim, but still pretty damn good. He even knows a secret smithing technique of using fire salts to make his forge produce even stronger metal. However, he has recently run out of fire salts and is unable to get more. But luckily for you, the player can swoop in and save the day by giving him 10 of those hot potatoes. Balimund also dislikes how people think he is merely profiting from the war by selling weapons, but he comes from a long line of smiths, so he knows nothing else. And so he aims to produce strong armors and shields that can save lives. I have always liked Balimund, but I was surprised with how little information there is on him. Hell, his last name, Ironbore, comes from the official game guide and not the actual game. But I don't care what people say, Balimund is a good man and a good father, which would make him your next perfect husband, especially if you're playing a craftsman character. And now, my fellow bachelors and bachelorettes, it is time for me to introduce the man that I believe is the greatest husband in all of Skyrim. At least out of the ones you can marry, of course. Behold the man of your dreams. Distilling his way into first place is Roggi Knot-Beard. Roggi is a Nord that lives in Kynesgrove and works in Steam Scorch Mine as a miner. Roggi's clan, the Knot-Beards, were originally the ones that first settled into Kynesgrove, and his forefather Lena is supposedly the one that first discovered the local mine. He has lived in Kynesgrove all of his life, but does often travel to other places from time to time, and one of those places was Riften, a place Roggi claims makes the best mead ever. Roggi has a deep fascination and love for mead, but sadly, even though he loves mead and knows a lot about fermenting it, he's never been good at making this stuff, and so he just sticks to fanboying about it. The reason why I love Roggi so much is because he tries to keep everyone more or less in line by checking up on them and telling stories to lift everyone's spirits. In fact, Roggi is almost never in a bad mood, because even when working down in the mines gets rough, he always remembers that there's a cold mug of mead waiting for him at the end of the day. The only time he gets upset is when he is unable to pay his debts to Idra, the innkeeper, for all the mead he has drank. However, because Roggi is so good at keeping everyone happy, Idra doesn't even care about the debt and asks the player to help him forget about it. Roggi is also a very moral and empathetic person. For example, his boss, Kjeld, will often make sexist jokes and imply that he is cheating on his wife. And Roggi will respond by saying that he should be thinking more about his wife and care about how she feels. I think Roggi would make a phenomenal husband and father, even if he can be a bit prideful. And I feel that he is one of the most underrated characters in Skyrim that deserves much more appreciation and love. I've seen way too many Skyrim videos saying that you should just sacrifice him to Boethia or Mephala just because he's a weak follower, but completely ignoring how much of a nice guy he is and what he truly brings to the table. You don't need a spouse that is the best follower in the game. You don't need to fucking min-max every goddamn thing in the game. Skyrim is a role-playing game, and so when selecting a spouse or even preferred follower, it should be on personality and merit rather than stats. It's more fun that way, and besides, you can have both a strong follower and a good spouse. Oh, and dear anyone who edits the unofficial Elder Scrolls page, can someone replace the picture of Roggi? I feel it makes him look unflattering, and I dislike it. Thank you for your time. And that is all I wrote! A video where I rank every single husband in Skyrim. This was not an easy task, and I was surprised with how many potential husbands there truly were, but the work is finally complete. I think I am the first YouTuber to rank every single wife and husband, which is an accomplishment I am very proud of. Sure, you have seen top 10 videos and tier lists, but never has anyone broke down every single spouse in detail. I also just realized after editing most of this video that I'm uploading it in June, which is Pride Month, so let's just say that was totally intentional. And in honor of Pride Month, here's a picture of a buoyant armiger from Morrowind. If you know, you know. I also want to honor my channel members, and they are Mirak, Will Ernst, The Proud Prince, JJ Ensid, Grud, Dova 2023, Josh McDonald, Milani Stilla, Abdullah the Goat, Luxie, David Correa, Dalton Rupert, I Love House Halalu, Kiril Gaming, Sov Dark, Felx Rianis, Cosmo, Sebastian Caponero, Jarinish Evento, Carson Friday, Grabowski, Luis Eduardo, Lord Relic, Serene Molly, and Batman Man. So with all that being said, make sure to like the like button, like the subscribe button, and like the bell notification down below to be updated on future videos. And I will see you whenever the fuck I decide to upload again. House Telvanni be with you.
I suppose you want to be asked nicely. Very well. Please, O hero of Skyrim, I shall be ever so grateful.